Describe your background in language and culture.
Originally, I lived in America, but I never really learned English because I lived in like a Russian-speaking household, and I only learned Russian. And when I was 4, I moved back to Russia, well, to Russia with my family. I mean, there I obviously spoke Russian. Then I moved to America, 5th grade. I had to move here and I had to learn to speak English. And then last year I spent a year in Israel and then I learned Hebrew. I mean, I started learning Hebrew a little bit. I don't really speak it, but I can like read a little bit and write a little bit.
How does language fit into a typical day in your life?
Well, I wake up in the morning. Usually I text a lot. I keep in contact with a lot of people from other countries. So usually when I'm on Facebook or I'm on the phone, I'm using a lot of Russian. I'm texting a lot of the time in Russian and stuff. Music wise, I listen to both Russian and like American music. I mean, depends on like my mood, whatever I want to do that day. They generally I speak English because I'm in America currently, but when I was living obviously in Russia, it was all Russian, and Israel it was also like mostly Russian, a little bit of Hebrew.
Were there any times where language became a barrier?
I remember one time we used to get these like pink slips for not doing your homework, and I didn't understand what they were for the longest time. And then the teacher, like at one point, decided to like make an example out of me and like pulled out all my pink slips, and there was like 60 of them, because I literally had no idea that like that's like the little papers you're supposed to get signed that like when you don't turn in your homework, and I had no idea that's like what they were. I had no idea like that's how school worked. I mean that was just like a tough like experience, I guess. But in elementary school, it was just like tough because people like look at you really weird, like. No one understand like because I couldn't communicate that well, and I still have like a kind of like an accent. It's not that bad as like I obviously like it used to be, but elementary school kids are like judgmental and stuff, and like it was tough to like make friends and stuff like that. Another cultural thing is like when I came here, like I didn't really like the sports here. Like I was into like European sports, so I couldn't really make friends because of sports. I remember feeling like that was a big problem because like I didn't like football and I didn't like basketball and I didn't like baseball, what like everyone was into.
Describe a little about your experience learning your first language.
I used to have like a problem in Russian. I used to have to go basically like what you used to say the letter r. It's like the it looks like a p, but it makes it sound r.
Yeah.
And basically, I used to like I was like a little kid, I couldn't say it, and I would like say it with like my throat, like I said it wrong, and I had to go to see like a lady that like helps you fix like your the way you talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Like a speech?
a speech like therapist lady. Yeah.
Describe a little about your experience learning your second language.
A lot of the classes in the beginning I got like pulled out for. I was in like the ESL or like ELL program or whatever it's called. And I basically just kind of spent that year just like playing board games. That wasn't really like asked to do that much in certain classes.
Gotcha.
I would get pulled out a lot.
Second language learners have two distinct ways of developing ability. One, through acquisition, and two, through formal learning. In what ways was learning a second language different than learning the first?
Well, obviously the way I learned it was very differently because Russian obviously I picked up just like from people talking, and like English was like taught to me.
Describe learning your third language at an older age. Was it harder?
It is definitely a lot harder to learn when you're older. I had a really tough time learning Hebrew.
Adults progress faster in earlier stages, but children outperform adults in the long run.
Like I remember Russian really well, but I haven't used like correct grammatical Russian since like I left. Like I use like Russian to text and like talk to my mom and stuff like that, but like I haven't used like official like rules of Russian and stuff since like I was in Russia. So, and when I was learning Hebrew, I I had to learn it in a class, like in a Russian class, like from Russian to Hebrew.
Adults beat the system by using first acquired language to help understand the next. In Zach's case, English became more of a predominant language.
Basically, I had to like compare like Russian to English and then to Hebrew. Like that's kind of like the way my head worked it, and it was very tough. Like I don't know, it was very hard.
Variables that factor into second language success include low anxiety, high motivation, high self-confidence, age, and environment. What do you think are the variables that factor into your second and third language success?
I honestly think that the best way to like learn a new language is to be put in a situation where you have to do it. I feel like I wouldn't be able to learn a language not being in like the culture and in a place where I'm forced to use it.
You've had to do that each time when you learn a
Yeah,
language.
so I honestly I couldn't, and I remember, like in high school like in high school they make you take like Spanish and French and stuff, and I like couldn't learn those. I guess maybe because I don't know, I just like wasn't interested in learning it. Like if I don't want to do something, I
Okay.
don't do it.
Interesting.
I think that's what, yeah, I think that's what it was.
Do you think age is a factor?
Yeah, I think age is a factor, and also I kind of like told myself like I already know two languages, like I don't need this. That's kind of like what it was. And the only reason I learned Hebrew was because I was in Israel and I was gonna stay there.
Can you talk a bit about learning in different cultures?
I guess okay. Well, school is definitely a lot like tougher in Russia. Like the teachers could be like a lot like rougher. It's like a little funner here in school. Like you walk into a classroom here, like an elementary classroom, and there's like colorful stuff on the walls and like it's like more like appealing to the eye. In Russia, like when I was in school, it was very like monotonous. Like everything is like white with like a green board with like it's just like the like classic like picture of a classroom. In public schools there are still uniforms too, which was like a thing. Well, I don't know how it is now, but we used to have uniforms. I didn't have that when I moved here. Like it was more fun to be in school here than there. There it was very like hard, you know.
Which style do you value more?
I think I benefited more from the Russian one just because when I came here I felt like really ahead in a lot of subjects and certain things. But at the same time, like the funner time of school I had here.
Is learning a new concept harder in your second language than it would be in your first?
I think now it would be easiest in my second language today, just because I spent so much like my upper classes here, and that's just what I got used to. So I feel like today would be easier in my second language.
Was it easy learning Hebrew from Russian, or do you think it would be easier from
I think it
English?
would have been a lot easier from English, just because I haven't like had to be like grammatically like really correct in Russian since elementary school.
What language do you dream in?
Well, I mean, it changes. I can dream in both, but like if someone wakes me up and I get caught off guard, usually I'll answer in Russian. Like even like if I don't realize like who it is, or if someone like walks into my room and just like decides to like get me up, or something crazy happens, like right, my first reaction is always in Russian.